So this is a 43-7. Now this machine, this is on a table and set up just like I found it. The only thing I did to this machine was just lubricate it. So, you know, I don't want anybody thinking I do a whole lot to these machines. You know, most of the time I usually don't. Most of the time I do what I did to this machine, and I just clean it up. I wipe them off, I lubricate them. I really over lubricate them. I think that by putting a lot of lubrication on and using them, and then that lubrication runs out, it carries out dirt. So copious lubrication as a way to clean moving parts. And so a lot of times I don't take much off of these machines if I can help it. It's a cylinder arm. It's got a fairly big shuttle in it, so it'll hold quite a bit of thread, which can be handy. Now this isn't necessarily made for leather. This machine is for sewing hat bands, and the bands and the bills on the hat, they sold, they would sell different folders and accessories to help you sew in the hat band and sew on the hat bill. If you look at the machine, you can see here that they've used a casing from other machines to make this machine. So here is where a lot of machines have their stitch length adjustment at, but they've abandoned that, and the stitch length adjustment is right up here, this thumb wheel here, and it affects how far the foot pulls the material through to create stitches of various lengths. Also, there's a lubrication cup on here, so it's kind of set up to use larger thread with the big spool and the oiling cup for keeping thick, heavy threads lubricated so they don't smoke as much. But you know, this machine is it's only rated at like I forget, I'll put it on the screen here, 600 or 800 stitches per minute. So you know, it's not a machine that you want to go very fast. Now this machine has a Singer transmitter on it and a real small pulley, and then on the hand wheel it has two different pulleys, and it by using the larger pulley on the hand wheel and the real small pulley on the motor, and the motor is rated at 1725, which some of these transmitters / motors are rated at 3450. So you have the slower motor, the smaller pulley on the motor, and I have it set up to where it's using the big pulley on the hand wheel. Those three things make this machine run down at those lower RPMs that it's built for. It runs real nice. So I've got this set up on the longest stitch it'll do right now. I'm just sewing with some sort of outdoor material. It's black and I've got white thread, so it makes for good video. So I can, you know, kind of control it pretty good with the foot. I think somebody who's better at it could maybe do a better job than I do, but you know, it doesn't go that fast. I mean, it can go kind of fast, but kind of get this folded up material sewed around the edges, and then kind of becomes a little more manageable. So one thing about that feeding foot, in this case my needle is in the work, but the the material's not back on the foot, so I did a stitch there and it didn't advance the work. So that's kind of a little bit different about this type of a feeding mechanism. Something to be to keep in mind. Now, as I said, this machine is set up to do hat bands and hat bills, and so you're really sewing inside of a circle. So if you're doing that, there's probably never a time that you wouldn't have something behind, back there behind the needle, because of the, circle being what it is. So this is kind of an interesting machine in that the feeding mechanism on this machine is upper feed. So of course most of your machines have drop feed. There's no drop feed here. There's only this smooth plate. There's no drop feed. There's no walking. Well, it's kind of a walking foot, actually. Yeah, you've got one walking foot, no drop feed, no needle feed either. So the only thing that moves the material on this machine is this one foot. That's a walking foot. This foot is also very narrow, which is kind of interesting, and it has these two teeth on it. So you can see this foot here. It just moves forward, sets down into the material, and pushes it back. And it's got a couple of teeth there. I hope you can see that. And besides that, let me see. I can show you a foot here. So you can see it's kind of got these points on it. And they come down and set into the material and move it through in this manner. So this foot is the only thing that advances the material, and this foot just kind of holds the material down as it's sewing. This foot doesn't advance the material, only the back one here. So it's a real narrow foot, and it is in line with the needle. So I suppose that makes it real handy for getting in and doing, the narrow edge of a hat band. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is about 5 stitches per inch. I would say that's the max for this machine. Like I say, I haven't checked out the literature on it, but as this machine sets, and I've got it adjusted all the way out, this is doing a 5 stitch per minute, 5 stitch an inch on the maximum setting. So, and then it will do, anything less than that. So when I adjust this thumb screw, the farther down this slot that you run this follower, the shorter the stitch length is going to get. So you can see here that somewhere in this life of this machine, this set screw has gotten broken off, but it is free. And then also the threads on this adjustment are, they're not great. They could be better, but they are working. I tried to get a screw for this, and of course Singer doesn't make that anymore. So finding one secondhand could be a trick, but like I say, it's still working. So let's do a short stitch and I'll show you what that looks like. Pretty short, actually too short for that size of thread to make a good looking stitch. Let's lengthen it back out again. just by adjusting this thumb screw on the back. And that looks better to me. It's not hard to adjust. You know, and when you're using this thread is Tex 105, which, you know, it's somewhere in the middle of a big thread and small thread, but you know, depending on the size of the thread, you know, really you can get too small of a stitch, and you know, that thread just doesn't look good. But I've got it adjusted now, and it's kind of hard to tell with all this other stuff going on, but it's making a pretty good stitch. So these two right here, these are what I'm doing right now, compared to, say, this one here. You can see it's about twice as long. So another interesting machine. Just illustrates how there are many different industrial sewing machines for each and every sewing application, you know, and it continues to this day. They're constantly inventing new sewing machines based on new needs and ideas. But if you're making hats, that could be pretty handy. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed seeing this old sewing machine. If you like the video, you know, it always helps if you give a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and thanks a lot for watching.